Have you ever felt like you were just going through the motions in a game? Like following a predetermined path, and your choices didn't really matter.
I know exactly what you mean. It's like being on rails, no real freedom to explore or make impactful decisions.
Exactly. And that's what got me thinking after a recent tabletop RPG session.
Yeah.
My group and I were in this dungeon, and it felt so linear, so restrictive, like we were just ticking boxes off a checklist.
Oh, that's the worst. It sucks all the fun out of it.
Right. And it made me want to dig deeper into the whole idea of dungeon design, specifically how to make dungeons less about go here, kill this, and more about player agency and meaningful choices. That's why I was so excited to find this article on LitRPG Reads called Nonlinear Dungeon Design, How to Give D&D Players Real Agency by Paul Bello. Have you had a chance to check it out?
Oh, yeah. It's a fantastic read, and it really resonated with me. It perfectly captures that feeling we're talking about, that desire for more agency in our games.
I'm glad you're on the same page. So let's dive into this deep dive and see what insights we can uncover together. First things first, the article kicks off by comparing linear and non-linear dungeons.
And it does a great job of highlighting the core differences. Linear dungeons are pretty straightforward. It's that classic point A to point B design. You follow a set path, encounter some challenges along the way, and eventually reach your goal.
Like a hallway with monsters.
Exactly. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with that approach, it can sometimes feel a bit limiting, especially if you're craving a more immersive and dynamic experience.
And that's where nonlinear dungeons come in, right? The article describes them as being more like a spider web with interconnected paths, hidden areas, and multiple ways to approach challenges.
It's all about giving players options, allowing them to make choices that truly impact their experience. Think secret doors leading to hidden chambers, branching paths that offer different challenges and rewards, or even the ability to negotiate with enemies instead of just fighting them.
And I love how the article emphasizes the importance of designing meaningful choices. Not just do you go left or right, but choices that have real weight. Choices that shape the narrative and the world around the players.
Yeah. And the article breaks down these meaningful choices into different categories, like resource management, where players have to make tough decisions about how to use their limited supplies.
Right, and narrative consequences, where their actions, like how they treat NPCs or which side they choose in a conflict, have lasting repercussions on the game world.
And then there's the whole aspect of tactical approaches. Players might have multiple ways to tackle a combat encounter, and each approach comes with its own risks and rewards. Do they go in guns blazing, try to stealth their way through, or use the environment to their advantage?
So many possibilities. It's like turning the dungeon into this dynamic puzzle box where every choice has a ripple effect.
The article uses this great analogy to illustrate this concept. Imagine the dungeon as a playground, not a hallway.
I love that. It paints such a vivid picture. Instead of being confined to a single path, the players can swing on the swings, climb the jungle gym, explore the sandbox. They have the freedom to choose their own adventure.
And just like on a playground, there's that element of discovery and surprise. You never know what you might find hidden around the corner, and that sense of exploration is a huge part of what makes non-linear dungeons so engaging.
I think it also encourages players to be more creative in their problem solving. If they know there's not just one right way to do things, they're more likely to think outside the box and come up with their own unique solutions.
Absolutely. And speaking of problem solving, let's not forget about the interconnectedness of the paths. It's not enough to just have multiple routes. Those routes need to be woven together in a way that feels organic and intriguing.
Like secret passages that connect different areas, or one-way doors that force players to think strategically about their movement. It adds a whole new layer of depth to the dungeon's design.
It's like those classic Metroidvania video games where you're constantly discovering new areas and unlocking new abilities that allow you to backtrack and explore previously inaccessible parts of the map.
I love that genre. It's so satisfying to gradually uncover the secrets of the world and piece together the bigger picture. And that sense of exploration, of uncovering hidden paths and secrets, is something we can definitely bring into our tabletop RPGs.
And as players are exploring these interconnected paths, they can stumble upon narrative choices woven into the environment itself.
Like finding a hidden chamber containing a diary that sheds light on the dungeon's backstory, or encountering two factions battling for control of a key location, forcing the players to choose a side.
It's about making the players feel like active participants in the unfolding story, not just passive observers. Their choices have real consequences, and those consequences shape the world around them.
It's all about immersion, isn't it? Making the players feel like they're truly inhabiting this world and their actions have weight.
You hit the nail on the head. And when it comes to immersing players in the world, we can't forget about the importance of rewarding exploration.
You're so right. Why bother venturing off the beaten path if there's nothing interesting to find? Rewards are like those little dopamine hits that keep us motivated to explore, to dig deeper, to uncover all the secrets the dungeon has to offer.
And it's not always about finding legendary weapons or mountains of gold. Sometimes the most rewarding discoveries are the ones that enrich the narrative or deepen our understanding of the world.
Like a hidden library filled with ancient texts that reveal forgotten lore, or a secret meeting between two NPCs that hints at a larger conspiracy. It's about those aha moments that make you feel like you're peeling back the layers of the onion and getting closer to the truth.
And I think that's what makes nonlinear dungeon design so exciting. It's not just about creating a physical space for players to explore, it's about creating a world that feels alive. A world with history, mystery, and endless possibilities.
And that's a world I want to play in. But before we get too carried away with our imaginations, we also need to consider the practical side of things. How do we actually design a nonlinear dungeon that's challenging, but not overwhelming for the players?
That's a great point. It's all about finding that sweet spot between challenge and accessibility. We want players to feel a sense of accomplishment when they overcome obstacles, but not to the point where they feel frustrated or lost.
The article talks about using techniques like scaling difficulty, where the challenges become progressively harder as players delve deeper into the dungeon.
And it also mentions the importance of providing clear objectives and visual cues to guide players without holding their hand. We want to give them the freedom to make choices, but also enough information to make informed decisions.
It's like striking a balance between giving them a map and letting them explore the wilderness with just a compass and a sense of adventure.
Exactly. We want to nudge them in the right direction without dictating their every move.
So we've talked about choice, consequence, reward, and challenge. But there's one crucial element we can't overlook: testing.
Ah, yes. Playtesting. No matter how meticulously we plan and design our dungeon, there's no substitute for actually running it with a group of players and seeing how it plays out in practice.
It's like taking our creation for a test drive. We need to see how it handles on the open road, where unexpected obstacles and detours might pop up.
And we need to be prepared to make adjustments along the way. Maybe a particular puzzle is too difficult, or a certain encounter is unbalanced. Playtesting allows us to gather feedback and refine our design to ensure it's both challenging and enjoyable for our players.
It's an iterative process, and it's a crucial part of creating a truly memorable gaming experience.
And I think that's a great place to pause for now. We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive, but there's still so much more to explore.
You're right, we've only just scratched the surface of nonlinear dungeon design.
So where were we? Oh yeah, talking about how playtesting is crucial to make sure our dungeon is fun for everyone.
It really is the ultimate test, isn't it? Putting our creation through its paces and seeing how it holds up under pressure.
And it's not just about finding bugs or glitches. It's about seeing how the players interact with the dungeon, what choices they make, what surprises them, what challenges them.
It's like we're anthropologists observing a new species in its natural habitat.
That's one way to put it. But you're right, we're gathering data, trying to understand how our creation is perceived and experienced by others.
And that feedback is invaluable. It allows us to make adjustments, to refine the experience, to ensure that the dungeon is both engaging and enjoyable for everyone involved.
It's a collaborative process, really. We're not just designing a dungeon, we're designing an experience. And that experience is shaped by the choices of both the game master and the players.
I like that way of thinking about it. It's not about us versus them. It's about us working together to create something truly memorable.
And speaking of memorable experiences, one thing that really stood out to me in the article was this idea of integrating narrative choices into the dungeon's design.
Oh yeah, that's where things get really interesting. It's not just about navigating physical space. It's about making choices that have real weight, choices that shape the story and the world around the players.
Imagine a scenario where your players stumble upon a group of refugees fleeing a war-torn city.
Ooh, okay, I'm picturing it now. Desperate people, scarce resources, tensions running high.
Exactly. And the players have a choice. Do they help these refugees, even if it means delaying their own quest? Or do they prioritize their own goals and leave the refugees to fend for themselves?
That's a tough one. It's a classic moral dilemma. and it forces the players to really think about their priorities and the kind of heroes they want to be.
And that's the beauty of it. It's not just a binary choice, it's a choice with consequences. If the players help the refugees, they might earn the gratitude of a powerful faction or gain access to valuable information.
But if they ignore them, it could come back to bite them later. Maybe that same faction now sees them as cold-hearted and refuses to help them. Or perhaps later on, they need the information that only those refugees possessed.
It's all about those ripple effects. Every choice sends out waves that impact future events, creating this dynamic and interconnected narrative.
It makes those choose-your-own-adventure moments feel so much more meaningful because you know that your choices actually matter. It's not just window dressing, it's shaping the story you're experiencing.
It's like those branching storylines in video games, where different choices lead to different endings. But instead of being pre-scripted, those choices are emerging organically from the player's interactions with the world.
I love that. It's like we're co-creating the story together, the game master and the players, each contributing to the narrative tapestry.
And speaking of co-creation, the article also stressed the importance of rewarding exploration, especially in these more open-ended, non-linear dungeons.
Rewards are like those little treasures we sprinkle throughout the world to encourage players to venture off the beaten path, to dig a little deeper, to uncover the hidden gems.
And it's not always about finding legendary swords or piles of gold. Sometimes the most rewarding discoveries are the ones that enrich the narrative or deepen our understanding of the world.
Like finding a hidden library filled with ancient texts, or stumbling upon a secret meeting between two NPCs that hints at a larger conspiracy. It's about those aha moments that make you feel like you're peeling back the layers of the onion and getting closer to the truth.
And those moments don't have to be grand or epic. Sometimes a small but meaningful reward can be just as impactful. A rare herb needed for a specific potion, a cryptic inscription that provides a clue to a long-forgotten mystery, or even a well-placed campsite, offering a moment of respite amidst a challenging journey.
It's about making those moments feel special, earned, not just handing out rewards for the sake of it, but integrating them into the world and the story in a way that feels organic and purposeful.
If your dungeon is an ancient temple, the rewards might be more spiritual blessings, prophecies, or even knowledge that can be used to advance the player's quest.
It's like asking, what would actually make sense in this world? What would feel like a genuine discovery, not just a random item drop?
And that's where the art of dungeon design comes in. It's about weaving those rewards into the environment, the challenges, the narrative, in a way that feels natural and satisfying.
So we've got choice, consequence, reward. But we also need to talk about challenge, right?
Right.
How do we make sure a non-linear dungeon is engaging without overwhelming the players?
That's a crucial point. It's about finding that sweet spot between challenge and accessibility, giving players a sense of accomplishment without making them feel frustrated or lost.
The article talked about using techniques like scaling difficulty, where the challenges become progressively harder as players delve deeper into the dungeon.
Exactly. We don't want to throw them into the deep end right away. We want to give them a chance to learn the ropes, to build up their skills and resources before facing the truly daunting challenges.
And it's not just about making things progressively harder. It's about providing the right kind of challenges for the player's skill level and playstyle.
Some players thrive on combat, while others prefer puzzles or social interactions. A well-designed dungeon will offer a variety of challenges that cater to different tastes.
And don't underestimate the power of visual cues. Dimming the lighting in a dangerous area, using sound effects to create a sense of unease, or strategically placing landmarks to help players orient themselves.
Those subtle hints can guide players without overtly spelling everything out, allowing them to feel like they're making their own discoveries while still providing a sense of direction.
It's like giving them a nudge in the right direction without taking away their agency. They still feel like they're making their own choices, but we're providing enough information to help them make informed decisions.
And speaking of making informed decisions, we can't overlook the importance of testing. No matter how meticulously we plan, we need to see how the dungeon plays out in practice.
It's playtesting time. I love this part of the process. It's where our creation truly comes to life. We get to see how players interact with the dungeon, what paths they choose, where they get stuck, what excites them, what frustrates them.
That feedback is invaluable. It allows us to identify any rough edges, any areas where the design isn't quite working as intended. Maybe a particular puzzle is too obscure, or a combat encounter is unbalanced. Playtesting helps us refine the experience and ensure it's both challenging and enjoyable.
And it's an iterative process, right? You test, gather feedback, make changes, and test again until you're satisfied with the results.
Precisely. It's like polishing a gem until it shines its brightest. You know, it's funny, we've been talking about giving players choices, and it's made me realize we as game masters, we're making choices too.
Oh, for sure. Every time we sit down to run a game, we're making a million little decisions that shape the experience.
Exactly. And nonlinear design, it kind of throws us a curveball. We can't just stick to a script. We have to be ready for anything.
Because the players, they might decide to go left when we expected them to go right, or they come up with some crazy plan that we never even considered.
Right. And that's where the real fun begins, I think. It's like we're not just telling a story, we're co-creating it with the players.
It's a collaboration. We set the stage, we provide the tools, but ultimately, it's the players who drive the narrative.
And that can be a bit scary at times, right? Letting go of that control and trusting the players to make their own choices.
It definitely takes some getting used to, but I think that's where the real magic happens. When we as game masters relinquish some of that control, we open up a world of possibilities.
We create space for those unexpected moments of brilliance, those twists and turns that we could never have anticipated on our own.
And it's not just about dungeons, right? This whole philosophy of nonlinear design, it can apply to any aspect of our games.
Absolutely. It's a mindset shift, a way of approaching storytelling that puts player agency at the forefront.
Imagine a quest where the order in which the players complete the objectives changes the final outcome, or a social encounter where different dialogue choices lead to different alliances or betrayals.
The possibilities are truly endless. It's all about thinking outside the box, embracing the unexpected, and letting go of the reins a little bit.
Trusting the process and trusting the players to make the story their own.
And I think that's what makes game mastering such a rewarding experience, the ability to create these dynamic, ever-changing worlds for players to explore.
It's a constant process of collaboration and creativity, a shared journey into the unknown.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. It's been a fascinating exploration of nonlinear dungeon design.
A huge thank you to LitRPG Reads and Paul Bello for the insightful article. It's given us a lot to think about, and I'm sure it sparked a lot of ideas for our listeners as well.
So to all you game masters and players out there, we leave you with this final thought. If you were to design a nonlinear dungeon, what kind of choices would you offer players? What twists and turns would you create? What rewards would you hide? What stories would you tell? Share your ideas in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you.